Good afternoon. You've tuned into our Rural Efficient Business Program interview series. I'm Felicia DePaula, the program specialist at the Economic Development Department, and I'm here today with Jalal Rastegari and Jennifer Sinsaba, who will be introducing their programs in just a minute. I will jump into a little bit of what the Rural Efficient Business Program is. We basically have a partnership between EDD, New Mexico State University, and the New Mexico Manufacturing Extension Partnership. The program strives essentially to assist rural small businesses and agriculture producers in New Mexico to reduce energy consumption, increase profits, and explore ways to implement renewable energy systems. We also have other programs in the Economic Development Department that coincide with the REBP program. That includes the New Mexico Fund It program, JTIP, LEDA. There's a plethora of options through the Economic Development Department. So I will provide this slide at the end of this series. I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Jennifer to talk a little bit more about MEP.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this webinar series. We have a great interview lined up for you all today. So thank you for joining us. I'm Jennifer Sinsaba, the CEO with the New Mexico Manufacturing Extension Partnership. And our primary mission is to help grow manufacturing in the state of New Mexico. We want to make it here in New Mexico by New Mexicans. And so on the slide is some of the ways we can do that. We can go into detail about that later if we have time. But if you have any process issues or anything, please feel free to reach out to us at newmexicomep.org. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Jennifer. And Jalal, we'll go ahead and pass it over to you to share a little bit about your program at NMSU.
Yes, my name is Jalal Rastegari. I'm a research scientist at the College of Engineering with New Mexico State University. We have different programs to help small and medium-sized businesses in New Mexico to be more energy efficient and how to deal with their environmental issues. So I'm going to talk about this later, maybe Felicia, and we have different programs to help the New Mexico residents, businesses, and so far we have been able to, provide services, and we will continue to do so because we just got a couple of more grants, and I'll be happy to help with any businesses in the New Mexico.
Great. Thank you, Jalal. Well, we have a really exciting guest with us today. I know that everyone at EDD was really excited about this. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Errol Bade. He's the CEO and president of Jack's Plastic Welding, which is a corporation operating in New Mexico and incorporated in New Mexico. Jack's Plastic Welding has been a business for over 30 years. The facility is located in Aztec, New Mexico, and they have a standard product line that includes inflatable boats, dry bags, and waterproof self-inflating mattresses. Jack's Welding plays an important role in the outdoor recreation business. This is part of the huge outdoor rec boom that's really putting New Mexico on the map. So we are really excited to have you here with us today. Thank you for joining us, Errol.
You're welcome.
Well, if it's okay with you, I'm going to jump right into some questions unless I miss some really important information, because there was just so much to gather from your website and so many great things to share with everybody. But I can start with some questions, and feel free to jump in there if you feel like we're missing anything.
Okay.
So I know that Jack's Plastic started out in Colorado. What influenced the move to New Mexico?
Money, basically. We started out in a chicken coop behind Jack's house in Bondad, halfway between Durango and Aztec. When it got time to move in '89, get into something bigger, we found a place in Aztec on Main Street and moved into that building. It was just a lot cheaper than trying to find a place in Durango or Ignacio, which tried to get us into their business incubator place there. So, and it worked out nice for us. It's really been a great place to start the business and grow it and so on and so forth. So.
And have you seen a lot of growth since COVID hit and a lot of people are getting really into the outdoor rec vibe.
It is. It's been a blessing and a
That's great.
pain at the same time. Last year, right at the start of COVID, it was really hard. In March and April, while most of our stores, not knowing what was going to happen, canceled their preseason orders for March and April. So we lost what we thought we were going to do, is lose about $200,000 in orders in a 2-month period. PPP saved us for that first 3 weeks. And then after that, what we noticed is a jump in sales on our website. And then a month and a half later, stores found out ways to open up, and they started, you saw a lot of stores that just had off the street businesses start up websites. And so you've really seen a boom in that internet traffic, and our sales and stuff and everything went out the roof. So we've just been going crazy for the last year and a half. Part of it is the sales. We actually ended up not doing maybe as well as we would have if it hadn't been for COVID, but we still had almost a 10% increase in sales. And then this year we started out, I had the largest amount of preseason sales I've ever had. The only problem we had is dual fold, and I've heard it from everybody. We can't find enough employees to hire. I've had job apps in for 3 weeks in different places, and for 3 employees, and I've only gotten 1 bite. And then basically I see it in the whole outdoor industry, just supply chain issues. We've not been able to get material sometimes for what normally takes 4 days for material to get to us.
Mm-hmm.
They said they were having transportation issues, and it's been taken up to a month. And sometimes we have to wait longer. And then one of our major projects, we have an allocation on our phone for our Paco pad. So it's a challenge, but we're working around it. We've seen an increase in all of our sales. And the beauty of it is everybody's in the same boat as we are. So they just expect their products to be late, which helps us out a lot.
Yeah, that definitely helps when you're looking for more employees. How many do you have employed right now that are actually working?
In the shop itself, not counting me, there are 14.
Wow.
And then there's myself, and then Jack and Lori still work part-time.
Wow.
So we would like to hire 2 more. I have 1 starting. I did find 1, and I believe there's another one that's supposed to put in application days. So that's good. The only part we're still having the COVID issues since school started up. And it's not as bad as it was last year, where they had the 14-day quarantine if someone tested positive, but we have kids, families working for us. And so when the kids are in a scenario like I have 1 employee out right now trying to go get set up for COVID tests, but his 2 kids were on a bus with a kid that tested positive for COVID. So they're out until we can get tested and all that kind of stuff.
The domino effect of COVID.
Yeah, but everybody's feeling that. It's just working through it, and it drives me nuts, but what can you do?
Do you guys do any tours, or is it all manufacturing?
It's all manufacturing. And so we don't do any tours. There have been 2 businesses open up locally. Right now, they're going to start running trips. In fact, one of the companies that just started up has got trips booked already on weekends. They're both school teachers, so they guide on the weekends, and then they wait for school to get out.
Good. That's a good decompressor for teachers.
Yeah.
Well, Earl, as much fun as I'm having, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to the experts and let Jen go ahead and start with some questions about energy efficient processes and efforts that you're doing over at Jack's Plastic.
Okay.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Errol, for everything that you did to survive the last year. This has definitely been hard on employers, employees, and everyone else in between alike. So appreciate those efforts, and glad to hear that things are going so well as far as maybe some increase in sales and better things to come for sure.
Oh, yeah.
So kind of jumping into efficiency and some improvements that maybe you've made over the past decade or whatever time frame is what does your workflow kind of look like? Give us a little bit of a picture of what your manufacturing workflow looks like and why that makes sense for your company.
Okay. So I guess we'd start with the orders. In the old world, we would go to shows for the whitewater industry, and then we kind of sell it. We sell at three levels. We sell at a wholesale level, an outfitter level, and a retail level, which kind of gets confusing for people, but it works for us. We also we would go to shows, take orders for the next year. We give discounts. So when I go to a show, and usually they were around anywhere from, well, the outdoor retailers in the summer, we don't even go to that anymore because we just couldn't take off the time to do it. It went back so far. They were doing it in July, which made no sense to us because none of our customers would come anyway. It's their busy time of year. So we would, then we have other shows. There was a paddle sports show that used to be in Oklahoma City. And then we had a major outfitter show that's in December. And then you have state shows for outfitters from November through February. And that's where we pick up, display our products, pick up a lot of orders. We also, every so often, we don't do it all the time, we do AORE, which is America Outdoor Recreation Education. So that's where you can get all the college outdoor programs that become members. They come to this show and you can have a small booth there and display and talk to people there. This is also where the Air Force, Army, Navy, all the military bases send their rec departments to also. So you have that kind of show. We pick up the orders and schedule them, and then we give discounts for shipping. We try to spread everybody out a little bit. So if they're willing, we do a 12% discount off of their price, wholesale or outfitter, if they take delivery before March 15th. That gets us some money coming in through January and March and gets us so that we're not borrowing so much, because a lot of the times we're just borrowing that spring area to get the product out the door, get materials, and then build it. Then we do a 10% increase after March 15th through the end of the year. We do a 10% sale from November 1st through Christmas. That's mainly for the stores, but outfitters take advantage of it also. And then for outfitters, we also do, if you order 50 products, 50 items, mix and match, whatever you want to do, we do a 17% decrease. So we give them a discount of 17%. So basically all those models are just to try and spread our workflow out instead of, and get our cash flow to turn over more quickly. And it seems to work for us. Most of these, a lot of the other manufacturers in the US do the same thing. And then there's, and of course, the manufacturers that have their products made in China also will give these pre-season discounts. And it gives you an idea how many people you can hire. Can I afford to hire 2 more people in November, get them trained before everything hits the fan? So that's our model for getting the sales. Then it comes to building, and that's a tough one. Most manufacturing companies keep their items to 1 or 2 items. We have bags, pads, boats, And then we do a lot of prototype work. We're finishing up our contract for NASA for the recovery rafts and stabilization collars that we've been doing the last 4 years. We've picked up another where we do things like we've entered into partnership with a company out of England. We're actually working on this. It's actually a contest. We've made it into the 3rd stage. And it's for building a portable wave-generated desalinization unit for turning saltwater into drinking water. So we're one of the last 10 companies or 10 partnerships to be in the final phase. So that's kind of cool. But by doing all this stuff, it really helps our sales also. So, and we've developed a name for doing prototypes in inflatables. So anybody out there that has a engineering degree in design, we are looking for someone to take Jack's place to do all this fun stuff. And we get some crazy stuff. We just finished another, I can't say what it is, but we just finished a project for the Naval Research Laboratory. But doing all these projects give us credibility and helps us with our, the way people look at us, I guess, for lack of a better word. It makes us look like we know what we're doing. And we try to do the best we can at looking like, and do know what we're doing. But, you know.
You do. Human. You know exactly what you're doing.
But anyway, so the workflow right now is kind of a mess this year and last year because everything got dumped in so hard. We can't get people. Our building's too small, so on and so forth. So we are just trying to do first in, first out as much as possible, except for some of the larger orders. One of our companies orders 800 pads at a time, and we've told them we can't do that many. We can't get people to come to work or apply for jobs. So we're spreading it out through the summer, and they're okay with that as long as we keep the pricing that they have. And that's our distributor. So I guess there's a 4th price level. But anyway, what we try to do is do groups of items. So we will do pads, we will do bags, and we will do boats. We can't fit it all through our little shop at the same time. So we do runs of them. And we try to make them small enough, but large enough at the same time to get through the process, because everything takes a little different. They use the same equipment, but different processes. So
right, that makes sense.
If we can run the stuff together. Now, to give you a plug at MEP, the lady that works with us, Denise, helps us out tremendously. We've done all of your programs to try increase our efficiency, and it has helped us. Makes you think out of the box a little bit. And I think that's the biggest thing. We have to think out of the box. We are working towards trying to get a larger building. But unfortunately, the only problem up here is Durango prices start to come into our area. So finding even a piece of property for less than $1 million right now is almost impossible. And then you add on an $800,000 building. It's getting rough. So we're working with EDD because we will be, and I've done it in the past before it fell through. They can help with LEDA funds and stuff like that through the city of Aztec, and they want to keep us here. So we have a lot of opportunity to do that too. I don't know if I got off the mark on that, but
no, I think that was perfect. You know, just to hear you talk about not only how maybe you allowed your company to become more profitable, but also diversify, right? So you went from outdoor recreation all the way to, so you're keeping us sane in our personal lives and in national security interests. So that's exciting.
Not only that, but oil and gas. Our first diversification was with oil and gas. It was during the big drought back in 2002 when we lost a lot of business. And so we had to have something so we could keep going instead of laying people off. And so we started building, we still build quite a few of them, culvert plugs, just plug that goes into the culvert. They use them up in Alaska on the ice roads, so in case there's a spill. We've done quick inflation containment systems in case there's spills. We've done other containment systems, and then we've done custom projects for out in the oil field. So to me, it all goes hand in hand. Some people will say, why are you working with oil and gas? Well, oil and gas gives me the roads to get out into the desert and up in the mountains when I want to go play. So it's not a bad thing. And besides that, all my products are made from oil and gas. If you think about it, everything we use in life right now, if it wasn't for oil and gas, you wouldn't have it. Not just the automobiles, but plastics, rubber, all that kind of stuff, your chemicals. That's why we are in trouble with our foam. That's why there's an allocation on the foam. It's a loss of, well, it started with COVID, and then last fall they had hurricanes on 2 of the plants that developed the resin for urethane. And then just lately, the other 3rd plant south of Houston froze up. So they got behind is just a waterfall effect on the resin for the foam, and now automobile industry's hurting. We're hurting. Anybody that uses foam.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and talking about those different items and your manufacturing process a little bit, I'm curious, do you use kind of the closed loop economy mentality? Are you familiar with that?
No.
Okay, so it's looking at where everything is kind of shared, repaired, reused, recycled. Are you looking at the waste as you're developing those processes?
Yeah, we do. We try to minimize the waste with our nesting of products.
Okay.
And then we use all the waste we can on other things. For example, we make these collapsible buckets, which have been quite popular, but that's all made from our some cuts on certain products. We make a little satchel go over your shoulder. It's all out of waste products. We cut really small things also. So parts for our boats or our bags are cut out of what would normally might be waste when you make your bigger cuts. So we nest everything as easily as possible. One of the things we do is we use SolidWorks for design. And it works out well. We can design in 3D, and we've become quite proficient at it. And then we can lay it out flat into DXF patterns for our cutting system. So we know exactly what we're laying out, and we have a vacuum table that uses those DXF patterns to cut.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. And so let's see, kind of moving along that train of thought then, based on everything you've kind of said, are there 2 or 3 things that stick out in your mind that you've changed within your process that has created the most efficiency or saved the most money, or made the biggest impact on your company in some way?
I think the main one is giving everybody in the shop has the ability, as long as they go through a certain chain, of coming up with ideas and then being flexible enough to try those ideas. You know, if it's just me, it's one mind, I'm stuck in a box. If I get some of those, I get those guys involved. I've always felt that helps and improves all kinds of efficiencies because they're going to come up with ways. They don't want to be doing things for a long time. They want to make it as quick as possible. And so I think that's where most of our big changes and processes have been, allowing them the input and the knowledge that it's okay to fail. Because some of the ideas, didn't work worth a hoot. But a lot of them, and I would say at least 80 to 90% of them, help and increase our efficiency. And we'll time it. We'll do time studies, see if it helps not, and figure it out. And we don't do it just one time. We give it a few weeks or even a month to see if it will help. And we're always looking for ideas because right now we are so clustered. We have to move 10 items to finish off one item. So that's one of our main challenges.
So empowering the workforce to help you with these solutions has made
all
the difference.
And it makes a huge difference. I think that is the biggest thing you can do, because I don't think I've been on the floor in 10 to 15 years. I like to get out there and do stuff. That's my favorite part of the job. You know, it's not the stuff I do now, definitely. Although some of it is a fun challenge. And I like the sales part and I like building it. But it's, I think, the best way to go.
That's incredible. Let's see. I think I'll give someone else a turn, and Jalal, I'll let you ask a few questions. Oh, I don't think we can hear you, Jalal.
Yeah, I was muted. Thank you so much. You are doing so much for the environment. You already recycle, you already reuse the material. What other environmental thing you are doing that is helping the environmental? I know that you are using culvert plug. Can you tell us about culvert plug?
Yeah, the culvert plug we build them in different sizes. They're inflatable to fit into different culverts, and they're used for different things. Environmentally, they're used to protect, for example, up on the ice road, ConocoPhillips would buy about 200 a year for a few years, and I think they've just stocked up, and unfortunately, our stuff lasts too long. But anyway, it's a way that they can, if they see a spill in the pipeline along the ice road, they can quickly put these into the culvert and then inflate them, and it stops any oil from going into the tundra in an area where they don't want it, so on and so forth. We also sell them to plants. We've made them for several plants that hopefully they've never had to use them, but what they're designed for is to go into drain culverts if they have a spill of some noxious chemical or something like that. So it protects things like that. They're reusable for the most part. If it is oil and gas based, you'll only get a few uses out of them because the oil and gas attacks the PVC that we use for the plugs. But the PVC makes urethane's a little better than that. But we found over the years that knowing people in the industry that use urethane and PVC, it hits our employees both the same way. If we're welding PVC and we start to use urethane, some of the employees, it affects them and they have kind of a small allergic reaction. So we stay away from it whenever possible. The other environmental stuff right now we're working with a company called Secor. And what they're doing is trying to figure out how to find an plankton that coral polyps eat that will survive increase in ocean temperatures, because the coral reefs are bleaching. And I may be way off on this, but it seems to me they're saying 80% of the population of the world is fed from the oceans and the coral reef environment where the fisheries are. We are now down to 60%, or like 40% of our coral reefs have bleached from ocean warming. And it's not because it kills the coral, it kills their food source. So we build these little inflatable pools. They set down in the water 5 feet, and then we put a mesh. They have different size mesh screens depending where they're deploying them. And they harvest coral polyps when the coral are, I don't know what the correct term would be, but giving birth or whatever. They harvest the polyps and put them in these special tiles inside this tank and let the water flow through, and then they'll put a different phytoplankton in there that the coral will eat. And they're trying to develop a phytoplankton genetically that will be okay in warming waters as the temperatures increase. So that's been kind of cool. The other things we've done is help with the National Science Foundation. They were doing ice studies. They found out they couldn't put sleds and go into the middle of Antarctica or Greenland and drill holes because the metal would fatigue crack quickly at 60 degrees below zero. So we were able to help with a company find a material that would withstand that temperature, and we made an inflatable sled. And so the inflatable sled can go over the ice waves, or for lack of a better term, But if you've seen the little ripples in sand, same thing happens in waves if you go out to the sand dunes. And that was what was cracking it. So it's kind of cool to keep in touch with those people. So we've done different items like that to help with environmental studies, and then to protect the environment. The quick inflation spill containment is basically, if you go on our website, you see a little square item with a duck floating in it. Well, it's actually it packs up real small, and it has a CO2 cartridge on it, which you pull the tab, inflates in 6 seconds, and will catch 100 gallons of fuel or whatever's broken. There used to be a company called BJ that's since been bought out 3 or 4 times. They bought about 50 of them. In the first 2 years, it saved them like $50,000 in environmental fines because they were able to quickly catch the breaks in their chemical tanks or their diesel tank when they're out in the oil field. And so the environmental department said, hey, you guys tried just a little bit spilled, just get that cleaned up and you're good. No fines. So it's an incentive for the oil companies to do that kind of thing. So anyway, that's some of the few that I can think of off the top of my head.
Perfect. So to what type of companies do you sell these stuff?
We've sold them to ConocoPhillips. Most of the companies up here in the Four Corners area have bought them. We've tried to get them go regionally. We did really well for a while, and then of course China took over, and they'd rather buy from China than from us because it's half the price. But that's all right. That happens to us all the time. But we have quality, so we have some loyal customers that stay with us.
All right. So you've made the first ever solar boats that is pretty unique. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah. Well, that one was all for a group of seniors doing their senior project in environmental studies up at Fort Lewis and Durango. So what they wanted to do is study how water was being used and what was going on with the Animas River. So what they planned for their study, and we helped with, was they wanted to do a trip all the way from the headwaters of the Animas. So they skied in, then they kayaked down what couldn't be boated, and then we supplied rafts and such. And they went all the way out to the San Juan and then over the waterfall into Lake Powell. And what we did was on our cataract, we built a frame that had 3 4x8 foot solar panels on top of it and a 6-horse torpedo motor. And that was able to get them across Lake Powell. And so they did a film about it. And all the way through, they were interviewing people in charge of the water from Durango to Aztec to Farmington, Shiprock, Kirtland, that type of thing. Pretty interesting project, and it was fun to follow for sure.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you.
And actually, that's my dream. We make a little cataract that I want to find some flexible solar panels to go on the sides of it. Mm-hmm. I want to circumnavigate Lake Powell just to do it. That's a retirement dream, but it'll work.
That's perfect. Thank you so much. Felicia, you have some question for Carol?
Gosh, there's just so much to ask. I'm like mind blown, and I've never been in a raft. I hate the water, and now I'm like, I think I'm going to give it a whirl this summer, actually.
Hey, it's so beautiful. I mean, it's one place. That's why they do permits now too. Unfortunately, every river is getting permitted, but in the wet, it's good. It cuts down on the amount of people. There's only so many campsites. But when you get down in a desert canyon or up in the mountains or whatever, there's no one there. It's just a few people that raft down or the commercial guides and so on and so forth. One of the greatest experiences is the Grand Canyon trip.
Wow.
And if you have the time, my last trip was 18 days. And the rapids are part of it, but as I get older, it's more about the quiet and the floating and just laying back and watching the canyon walls go by or hiking the slot canyons, that type of thing. And even around here, down on the Gila is a beautiful little stream to go down. We have the Taos Box, and then what I was talking to Johanna about earlier, the going through White Rock Canyon into Cochiti. I mean, it's a beautiful little canyon. And there's places to go. And so it's one of our areas too, is we make these smaller boats that you can go on smaller streams. There's a place called Muddy Creek. It's a slot canyon about 14 miles long, but you're floating down it. You can only do it. You got to watch it. It's a window of about 2 to 3 weeks. But sometimes you can't have oars. You got to have a paddle because it gets too narrow, and then it's 600 or 700 feet tall above you. Or you go under a log jam that's 40 feet above you, and you wonder, golly, that must have been a good flash flood. I hope it doesn't happen now. But it's just beautiful. Last year I was on Desolation Canyon for a week, which is the Green River and it goes from between Duchesne and Vernal. To put in, you go down through the oil and gas fields there and down into the river, and you take out just above Green River. Well, we had a camp spot, and we just picked a camp spot. I've never camped there before in 30 years of boating up there. And we got in there, and there's just these ledges, but a beautiful little place up there. Well, our breakfast the next morning and our rigging got interrupted for an hour and a half as a herd of desert bighorn came down in there and watered right with us at camp. We just sat on our boats. And if you can get a 3-year-old hyper kid and 3 through 12-year-olds to just sit still for an hour and a half, it was amazing. So there's those type of experiences that you get to have. That's just beautiful. And it makes you realize we got to protect our water resources too. So just coming up with different ways to protect them is not only for recreation, but the Colorado River Compact was done during the 100-year floods or whatever it was. I mean, don't have hardly any water left on that compact to go anywhere. And they're starting to, and we've seen the effects. You can't you used to be able to float down to all the way into the ocean. You don't want to do that now. When you get down into Mexico, it becomes so polluted. Guys that have tried it come back with rashes all over. So, it's just amazing. We lose so much water in the Lake Powell and Havasu Lake, just going through the sandstone, the natural aquifers there. And then there's the evaporation. So is there a better way to get the water? Because I realize communities need them, but we have to figure out something different. I don't know. Jalal will probably know better than I, but the Ogallala Aquifer under Phoenix is going down like crazy, or it has been for years. So that takes tens of thousands of years to get the water from the Black Hills down there. So, and I guess that's why I like this. It's trying to bridge that gap, because I don't count myself a preservationist, more of a conservationist, because we need to find better ways, but we also need to understand and realize can't just take away oil and gas or take away this or that. We have to work into it. But anyway, now I'm getting on my soapbox, so I'll get on.
Well, you're just a wealth of knowledge. We could have this interview go a few hours, I'm sure, and people would be in awe.
Well, you need to.
Well, I kind of want to close it out before we take questions or see if we have any questions or comments from the audience. I just really want to know, what is the best piece of advice you can give to other businesses out there who are looking at their energy consumption, and what about renewable energy, if you have any take on that?
Yeah, so energy consumption, just really getting your becoming efficient in your production. That's going to help. I think one of the things that surprised the heck out of me is when I put motion sensors all the way through the shop, both buildings. Then the lights pop off and pop on And when you're not in an area, why are you running 6 batches of 8-foot fluorescent lights and going to LEDs that, and those motion sensors? That helped a lot. My dream for the new building, if we can ever get it off the ground, and I will get it off the ground, hopefully, or the next person that takes over for me will, but we want to use geothermal in the floor. In other words, have radiant heat in the cement floor, because that, and then pre-do your air that goes through there and water. They've been doing it for years, just with air in the Midwest, but more for heat. Friends of mine have built around their houses, they have basically a drainage type system where the air is down to a constant 65, even when it's 30 below where I grew up. And so they add that air to their heat, it takes less energy. I'm looking at the same thing with the floor. Having that water underground to a point where it's a constant temperature, it should help. It'll help with the cooling and the heating. Solar power, I totally believe in it. My roof is going to be covered with solar, although I want to combine that, and I hope to talk to New Mexico State more about this, have an audit done, but I would like to figure out how to combine the solar with passive solar, so that I'm generating electricity, but I want that heat from windows, but I also want the light, ambient light from the windows also. So I'm not using as much light. Maybe if we get it done right, we won't have to use electric lights as much. I don't know. But that would be things that I really want to look into in this building and be proactive about.
Well, I see Jalal's nodding, so I think you're on to something with everything you're saying. Jen, Jalal, does anybody have any last questions before we see if we have any comments or questions from the audience?
Well, I hope to get in touch with Errol, and we'll do the audits. We closely work with Jennifer team, and we have done many plastic, welding. So we have some experience, and definitely we'll be happy to work with you.
Oh, that'd be great. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, and I think, I know that in addition to all the great things you're doing, you're a great community partner as well. So anybody that's out there that might have questions, I know that all of us resource providers on the call are obviously able to help as well, but Errol can be a wealth of information, as we saw today. So I'm sure he wouldn't mind reaching out to him as well in some of those business processes.
Not at all. So, unfortunately, I helped a person up in Durango too much, but that's all right.
Well, it looks like I don't have any questions coming through, just a couple great comments. The JPW Paco pads are game changers. Great info, Earl. Just JPW is an amazing company. So it sounds like everyone's on the same page. You're doing amazing things. We'd love to have you back when you finish up your partnership, or our fingers are crossed that you guys come out the winners with the NASA deal in England. That would be amazing. And just to hear more about your naval research, when you can talk about it more, if that day comes. But it just sounds
I don't even know if I understand it. But
yeah.
We just built an inflatable that they wanted for him. So.
Well, thank you for doing that. I think that we all probably feel better about that. But just thank you so much for joining us, taking time out of your day. This has been a really pleasant, informative, amazing educational interview. We appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody, and Errol. And please feel free to tune into our YouTube channel, where we will have this recording of the interview up, and join us for our next series, when we will announce the date in our wrap-up document, and that'll be in June sometime. And thank you again.
Thank you. Appreciate being on here.